So our Bible reading this week is in Hebrews chapter 10. I'm going to take a shot and say probably the most familiar chapter in the
In
book of
Hebrews?
Hebrews to a
Well,
lot of
chapter
us.
11 maybe.
Yeah, the Faith Hall of Fame there,
Yeah.
but
This is
maybe
the lead into that chapter,
maybe
though.
maybe a close second. But a lot of great stuff in Hebrews chapter 10. So you have some things to really ponder over for the next few days as we read this. But some background here I think is important, especially in the context of being zealous for good work, because that's what we're thinking about this year. Because Hebrews was written to people who were not zealous for good works. They were discouraged and things were so bad. Not only they are not doing good works, but they're thinking about walking away altogether. And so when we're reading 10, we need to keep that in mind, that this is a passage designed to help these people hang on during difficult times when they're tempted to walk away.
Right.
So let's wrap Hebrews 10 into that and this idea we're working of being zealous for good deeds. How does that play a part in that broader effort of the book?
Yeah, so it's the reason we're here this week is really kind of some things that are said at the beginning of the chapter, early in chapter 10, in describing, what the Hebrew seems to be doing is setting up, the once-for-all sacrifice of Jesus Christ. The blood of bulls and goats was not adequate to take away sins. We needed something better. Christ is that sacrifice. And so underscoring the uniqueness and importance of Christ and the suitability of him as a sacrifice. The Hebrew writer, and he's actually quoting from the Old Testament here, but in verse 5, ascribes some of the Psalm's words to Jesus, that these become Jesus' own words, the Christ's own words. Verse 5, sacrifices and offerings you have not desired, but a body you have prepared for me. And burnt offerings and sin offerings you've taken no pleasure. And so I said, behold, I have come to do your will, O God, as it is written of me in the scroll of the book. And so the idea of Jesus coming to the world, being given a body, the incarnation, and then recognizing that his job in this world is not to seek pleasure, nor is it to seek safety, comfort,
Happiness. I thought I'd bait you with that.
Well, yeah, but especially as you mentioned, the original context, these are persecuted, suffering Christians most likely, right? And so remembering as well then that safety and comfort are also not part of what we're here for. What are we here to do? Well, here's the Christ saying, I've been given this body, and basically I've come to do your will. My body has been given to me to do the will of God with. And so it's not about my, promoting my personal happiness as the first and foremost or highest thing. It's doing God's will. And so it also means that it's, my safety and security and comfort are not the highest deal. The issue is doing the will of God first and foremost. And so that, that commitment to the will of God, that zealousness for God leads Jesus to live the kind of life he lived, whereas as the book of Acts describes him, he went about doing good. His good works flow from not his own opinion or his own desires or this makes him feel good to help people. He's doing this because it is the will of God for him to minister in this way and then ultimately to sacrifice himself in this way. And so that's what we're called to do in our own lives, is to look at our lives. The gift of my life, my existence in this world is not myself and my own self-fulfillment the way we are taught to seek it in the world. My place in this world is to do the will of God with my life.
So really, your thought in choosing this text was to help us almost get underneath
That's
the
right.
good works.
That's right.
And to ask the question, what drives us
That's right.
to do what we do for God? Which, really, by the way, is really, really important.
Absolutely.
Because as Matthew 6 makes clear, you can do good things
That's right.
that are not pleasing to God because they're driven by the wrong motive, maybe
Yeah.
the desire to be noticed, to be praised by men.
Right.
Certainly a concern when we do our good works. And so what you're saying is that underneath this, what really ought to be there is this recognition that I'm his, I belong to him, I'm in the body to do his will, and that ought to then drive everything that we do.
That's right.
So the interesting thing about Hebrews is if you read on down in the context, he kind of maps out a little bit even what that's going to look like
Right.
when that's underneath
That's right.
how it works out in real life. So there's verse 19, a Tumlinson word.
Therefore, That's
yes.
right.
Randy always wants us to think about that, right?
That's right.
So he goes on to talk about some specific things. For example, verse 22.
That's right.
Let us draw near. Notice, with a sincere heart, full full of assurance and faith, right?
Right.
And he talks about holding fast the confession and considering one another's and assembling together. So he actually maps out some specific ways
Right.
that when driven by the will of God, that then we will then begin to behave.
That's right. And again, so at the end of the day, we're going to, and again, like the assembling, in their context originally, probably the idea was they were stopping to assemble because it was danger. So they were maybe not as prone to assemble. If I exist in this world to do the will of God, and one of the most important things I do with my life before God is worship Him in the assembly that He has established through Jesus Christ, through the church. Then me choosing, especially on a permanent basis, the choosing of safety or security over assembling with the saints, that's a bad trade.
So y'all watch me because I'm going to bait Jeff with this one, okay? So listen to what I'm about to say to him. As you're saying that, I'm just sitting here thinking how countercultural this is,
Right.
where we're trained to think about life in these terms. What do I want?
Right.
What is your agenda? What do you want for you, right? That's what's preached to us in our
Right.
culture. And so this is a completely countercultural idea. This is not about what I want. It's not about me.
That's right.
I exist to bring him honor and glory.
I was given a body. I was brought in this world, given a body by the gift of God, and my job now is to pursue His purposes with it, not my own. And and someone says, "Well, that's so are we ever supposed to be happy?" Or how do you? Well, no, we're supposed to be joyful. And just like we train our children to learn to love the right things, if one of my children loves hitting their sibling, but they enjoy it, makes them happy, I've got to discipline them out of enjoying that into enjoying a better, different kind of relationship with their sibling. We get that with parenting. Part of our job then is to retrain ourselves so that we find delight and joy in doing the will of God, even if it leads to suffering, even if it leads to sacrifice or loss, even if it means we're not safe or we're not comfortable. I am content. I am happy. Now you're in the Paul, right? Philippians 4. I can be content in any situation. I've learned in all these situations to be content. Why? Because he knows he's doing the will of God in his life.
Yeah. And how many times has it worked out well for those determined to satisfy self and do what I want?
It's an insatiable appetite, and they really aren't, permanently and truly happy.
So we have a lot to ponder this week in Hebrews. So pay attention to what's underneath our good works. But hey, notice beginning in verse 19 as well, some ways that begins to work out in life. And I hope your reading is a blessing to you this week.